Instead of flying into Nintendo's Directs with the same excitement level that I parade on camera, I tend to just walk in there with my expectations set to the ground level. The excitement shown by fans already has the earth move under my feet, but Nintendo's recent Direct has this guy tumbling down like an avalanche of awesome information. First, the Mario Maker Direct flies in and smacks me across the face like a hydro pump of fantastic happy news. And now the Pokemon Direct, which I didn't think had a fighting chance of surprising me, landed a critical hit on my eyeballs. Honestly, I just got up this morning, threw this on over breakfast, sat down, and a minute in, I stopped eating my breakfast and just started eating my words. Because I was so wrong about them just showing nothing. They showed a lot more than I expected here. Do not get me wrong, the first minute had my hype levels somewhere between a rock and a hard place. Honestly, if you're there to buzzkill, nothing says buzzkill to me like a history lesson of Pokemon using Double Team in the background. I mean, I get it, I love history as much as the next guy who can name the first 151 Pokemon, but I need some meat, some Pokemon meat to this Direct. And they delivered that meat, not on a plate, but in wheelbarrows. Lots and lots and lots of wheelbarrows. Galar, the wheelbarrow region. Also, can we touch on Galar for a second? All I ever hear when I hear that name is the Australian slang, "you flamin' Galar," which I have no idea why a bird on fire is another word for calling someone a moron, but hey, welcome to Australia. Alrighty, we've gotten this far and I haven't mentioned the name yet, so let's talk about that. The name is Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I really like. I think this is a decent name. It's something that's like, doesn't have to revolve around the universe, although are we getting into the Splatfest territory now? Because it's almost sounding like this is a Splatfest. Whatever version sells the most wins. Also, is this wolf on top? Is that a legendary? Like, I don't know how this normally works, but isn't normally like the sun and the moon and the X and the Y's? Aren't they normally the representation of the legendary Pokemon? So I can only imagine that the wolf on top of this one is some sort of, I was going to say reincarnation, but that's not really the word I'm looking for here. It's some sort of representation of the legendary that we're going to see. And perhaps the Sword and Shield, maybe they're wielding them, maybe they're some sort of part of their body. Don't really know, but it sounds interesting nonetheless. It does make me wonder whether the third version will just kind of combine the two, give the legendary, the sword and the shield, like to combine them together. I know they like to do stuff like that. I'm no super Pokemon expert dude, but I know a little bit, and I think they normally do something like that, don't they? Gotta say though, in my head the name just, it feels so different and cool. The way it's just like, no, we don't have to always go with the color, or it doesn't have to be about the galaxy. It can just be about items that people would just find. They're not really household items, are they? But items. Anyway, they announced the name and everything actually at the end of the Direct. I think what was super surprising to me is that the start of the Direct, the way it just had a minute of history, and like at that point, I don't know about you, but in the first minute of history, I'm like, here we go guys, here comes the Pokemon history lesson to a reveal of a title, and that's gonna be it. But nope, they totally blew me away. Exactly 1 minute in, they're just like, boom, here's what it's gonna look like. You know, and I was just like, whoa, this actually looks really good. Like not graphically, fidelitably good, but it looks really nice on the eyes. And I love the region. I love the look of this region. To me, this region, like, I live in Australia, and it kind of reminds me of home a little bit. See, now I know Australia is like the driest place on the earth, and this is set in England, whatever. But for me, I live in the hills in Australia. So when they first revealed it and they showed this place, it's surrounded in hills. I'm just like, yes, this looks awesome. I love it. If I'm to remove myself from my homeland for a second and just say what else it looks like, it kind of looks like New Zealand, the way it's like a long trying to stretch of a map, surrounded by sea, or girt by sea as we'd say here in Australia. And because the starting area just kind of looks like, I don't know, the Shire out of Lord of the Rings, it just kind of gave me that New Zealand feel. But of course we found out, or it definitely looks like, based off what smarter people than myself say, it's set in the merry old land of England. I also say that I live in cold, hilly parts of South Australia, but we just had 5 days in a row over 37, so like, should probably zip my mouth a little bit there. And if I kind of avert my attention away from the Shire for a second here, and actually go to like all the areas that we saw, I really like it. I really like the caves that we saw with all the sparkly gems and stuff over the walls. I thought that was really cool. And then we see like this lab looking area. I think that's kind of cool. We obviously seen quite a diversity here with like the snowy area. There's some sort of beachy area that still might be surrounded by snow there. And even the towns, like you get this kind of like almost steampunky feel of a town, as well as like the town that is just the snowy town. Like, I know that sounds generic, but I thought this looked really nice. It is a little bit barren of life forms at the moment, but I mean, I guess that's to be expected. It's probably quite an early on version. They haven't implemented NPCs and stuff like that into this yet. I hope so anyway. But yeah, it all looks nice, and I'd go as far as saying I enjoy the world and the style, but the graphics obviously aren't amazing here. Obviously they're much better and they look great on the Switch, but it's still nothing mind-boggling, which I feel like they could do a little bit better in that department. But perhaps, and I think a lot of it's going to come down to this, is the fact that it almost feels like they haven't had the amount of time that they need to create this type of experience on the Switch. Of course, being the Pokemon company, they're not going to just push it out and say, yeah, we'll just wait another year. No worries, because waiting another year means, you know, millions of copies sold to them. So obviously they're not going to do that. But I could see the fact that they haven't had all this time to put into it. Graphics have never been much of a sticking point with me anyway, so not a huge deal. And obviously it doesn't look like we're in the 90s anymore, so it looks nicer than it did ever before. Now it may not look like we're in the 90s, but it does kind of feel like we're in the 90s, considering that random encounters have returned. I'm not really happy about random encounters. I don't know anyone else. In fact, I do know about a lot of other people, because I've looked at comment sections, and apparently there's a fairly big divide here of people who like the random encounters and people who like the Let's Go system of just seeing them on the map. I'm definitely for seeing them on the map, but it's a way bigger divide here than what I thought. On my own personal level here, it just kind of feels archaic, the fact that I have to go into my menu and grab out repels to be able to go through the grass without bumping into encounters. It's kind of like, okay, that's not the best method and use of my time, having to go through menus to do that. Maybe if it was like a quick bound or something like that, and I didn't have to pay money to avoid encounters, I could understand that a little bit more. And I just like seeing the Pokemon on the map. It did add a little bit more life, even if it did feel cluttered sometimes. I just kind of enjoy that. We also got this really big look at the starters at the end of this trailer, which I kind of, obviously we're expecting to see maybe some of the starters. I wasn't expecting much, but probably the starters, and we got to see that. I'm not all that excited about them, I'm gonna be honest here, because I'm just never really that excited about starters. They start, they're called starters because they are the start of your journey, and then they evolve. And they change and they go into something else, and so you never really keep them unless you choose not to evolve them, which I don't know why you would do that, but unless you really like them. As far as the look goes, I don't think any of them are anything major on the eye. I mean, again, starters never really have been to me, but I just generally go with the fire type if I'm going to pick one, because ever since, I think it's something that's come with me since the original Pokemon, where it's like, a fire type is one of the harder ones and later game ones that you get, so why not pick it at the start of the game? I mean, what I would have loved to see is the legendaries. I mean, the starters are one thing, as I said, they just evolve their starters. Legendaries, on the other hand, that's something cool, and I'd love to see just one or something about the legendaries, but we didn't get that, and so I wonder when they're going to reveal that. That's interesting to me, considering from what I hear, they definitely reveal these legendaries mostly like early on when they first kind of announce the game. They use it as part of the advertising, and so yeah, I'm interested to see what that is, where that is, what legendaries there are, and what even new Pokemon there are. Apart from that, some of the other stuff that I'm excited to see is just what are the new features they're going to bring into this, because I mean, we know they love tradition, they love to stick with that tradition, but they are going to bring, hopefully, some new stuff into this as well. Maybe some stuff they were not expecting. In fact, if you listen to the quote here where he says they were challenging themselves to try new things while still treasuring what makes Pokemon special. Well, to me, like the first part of that quote, challenging themselves to try new things, I hope they're not just using some like air quote words there and actually throwing some meaning behind that and really trying some new things in this game, because they could try some interesting things. They're now on a HD console with a Switch. Let's get something different out there. Make Pokemon different. Make it. Oh, let's not say great. Also, when talking about Pokemon, they mentioned that is not all for 2019, which that line there has me very interested. What is Pokemon related is coming out in 2019? We know Town is coming, but they specifically said Pokemon here, not Town or not like another one of their IPs. So. Also, when we get more information about Town, guys, let me know about that still. I'm really excited about that. But yeah, what else is coming Pokemon-wise? I know a lot of people, myself included here, are hoping for a Pokemon Snap game, but I don't know what we're going to get or like what they have on the plans. It could just be anything mobile for all we know, but yeah, that's interesting. Hopefully we find out more soon. Anyway, this is exciting. I'm really loving most of the things I'm seeing about this so far, which, to be honest, as you kind of probably tell from this video, I'm not the biggest, I mean the shirt says otherwise, but I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan. I enjoy Pokemon. I enjoyed Pokemon long time ago a lot more, but I haven't really dug into anything recent Pokemon that heavily like I used to. And so I'm kind of optimistic about this. Let's put it that way. I'm optimistic about this game and capturing me more than any other one. And simply because the first look at this world captured me more than any other world has before. And not just because it's in HD, but just because it is beautiful, we've seen some really cool, diverse locations, and I'm just hoping that the rest of it's there to keep me on board the hype train, let's put it that way. Yeah. Anyway, let me know how you feel about the hype train. Are you on board the hype train? Have you just got some thoughts on your own of Pokemon, or only just learned about it? I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And remember, for great Nintendo entertainment, you can count on me. Oh, yeah, for today's end screen, I am going to let you know that I am going to be picking the Shield version because I like to root for the underdog, and I feel like the Shield version is going to be the underdog in this situation. Obviously, we don't know what Pokemon or version differences there even are yet, and that goes into a lot of people's decisions, but personally, I'm just like, oh yeah, underdog, go the Shield, and that's my decision. Let me know where you're at the moment, and if you made it here, that is, and goodbye.